Welcome to DWTC, the podcast where we dig into the real and sometimes chaotic world of small to mid-sized business ownership and entrepreneurship. Today, we're diving into an area that often gets sidelined in the hustle of building a business or sustaining a business, and that is nutrition and self-care. Our guest is Hannah Holzum, a registered dietitian and founder of Holzum Nutrition Co. As a wife, mom to 3 girls, and a busy entrepreneur herself, Hannah knows what it's like to balance the demands of life and business. She works with busy moms and businesswomen and businessmen, helping them incorporate lasting healthy habits and nutrition plans to shed the weight for good. No more yo-yo dieting, which is something that I have personally struggled with in the past. Hannah believes that food is fuel, and with the right approach, nutrition can empower you to be your most confident, successful self. In today's conversation, we're covering everything from the link between nutrition and productivity to practical meal prep tips and ways to prevent burnout. If you're ready to transform your approach to health while building your business, this one's for you. Let's dive in. Hannah, welcome to the pod.
Hey, Kerri, thank you so much for having me. I am pumped to be here today.
Yeah. And, we'll jump in. I know that you're a podcaster yourself. And so it's super fun to have somebody else on that has their own show. And we'll talk about that more. But before we jump in, I realized I said men. Do you ever work with men or do you primarily work with women?
I do. So I do primarily work with women, but yes, I do work with a few good men as well.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, I'm glad for that clarification because we have a pretty good listenership of males, especially, focusing on entrepreneurs and business owners. We have a pretty good mix. So, well, let's jump right in and give the listeners what they came here for today. So let's start out with your journey and what led you to becoming a nutrition coach.
Yeah, so I am a registered dietitian and I have gotten to my current role through a kind of a journey. I originally started off working with personal training clients. I would do nutrition coaching, and I've got to see a little bit of everybody along the way, which is really cool and has really helped me develop into the dietitian and the nutrition coach that I am today. So I've worked with everybody from premature little 1-pound babies, kids, adults, and lots of busy business owners as well. So I always felt that I had the entrepreneurial spirit and always thought about starting my own business, doing my own thing. And I really just thought that sounds like a lot of work. I don't know. And then the pandemic hit, right? And I, at that time, was working in a hospital setting where I would see inpatients, and then I would also see patients in clinic. And so this really forced me into having to now turn to Zoom and video conferencing for patients to meet with them because it wasn't safe for them to come into the clinic. And I soon realized that I could absolutely do this and be able to reach more clients. I could help more people with their nutrition journey than just the people I was seeing in the hospital. And so I decided to start my own company and really focus in on nutrition coaching and helping everybody everywhere. And so that's where I'm at now.
That's awesome. And I follow you on social media. You always put out a ton of really great tips. And it's been fun to watch what it is that you are sharing, like grow and expand. What's that been like going from, I'm assuming you're W-2 or, a 1099 for an organization and then going out on your own as far as like your voice and what it is that you're focused on?
Yeah, it was a journey for sure. Yes, of course, I was a W-2 employee working for a university health system and switching over to running my own business and becoming my own boss was certainly interesting. And it really just gave me more freedom to be able to talk about a number of different nutrition topics. I worked at that time when I decided to start my own business. I was actually working with children, and working with children, though, you really work with parents a lot. And it was really eye-opening to me to see that it all starts with the parent, right? Like it all starts with the adults and how really it's what the adults are doing that impacts kids. And all of us entrepreneurs, all of us business owners, we all want to positively impact our kids too. And so I really felt led to teach in a way that can help adults be healthy, but that could also positively impact your kids. And, you could leave a health legacy for your kids and, possibly your employees as well.
Yeah, you're right. That's huge. I mean, I just think about my own personal health journey and the way I communicate with my son. We've got 3 kids, but only one left at home. And it's completely different for him than it was our older girls because Terry and I, my husband and I, looked at our health in different ways. We were kind of in convenience culture, a ton of dining out, pretty much whatever was easiest at the time. And I mean, also trying to like pay attention to protein. So we would try to blend those things, but you and I both know it makes it really easy to like add the margarita, add the wine pairing, add the French
Absolutely.
fries with the cheese dip. You know what I'm saying? So like we have changed the way that we eat. And just before we got on here today, I made myself a salad, my husband a salad, and then my 12-year-old a salad. And that's what he had for lunch today, right along with us with all of the colorful veggies. And I just fix him the same thing. And I've learned like I put one cherry tomato cut in half instead of like the 5 that I put in my salad because he'll pick around, but it totally transmutes down to our children. And he doesn't think twice about like having avocado in his lunch or the fact that I make sure that we make our own peanut butter instead of buying it jarred or whatever. He doesn't think anything about that. But I do notice with his friend group, he kind of sticks out like a sore thumb a little bit. And I'm just hoping that now that there's more access to this information and people like you out there, like breaking it down to an individual level to where it's not so hard and it's not all one way or the other to where we can't sustain it. I'm just hoping that we continue to see this shift in health across the world.
Absolutely. Me too. Me too. Because the kids need it too. The adults need it. The
Yes.
kids need it. We all need it.
Yes, because as a 42-year-old woman that grew up on Gushers, you know what I mean, and SpaghettiOs and stuff like that, I'm like,
Ding dongs.
yes, that was like convenience was just coming out when I was a kid. That was really popular and it was fun for our
Yep.
parents to be like, you can buy it in a bag or a box or a can and it'll stay around forever. I grew up on a farm. We didn't have access to a lot. And so that was really cool when that came out.
Yeah.
And, at the time we didn't realize what that was doing to our health. And now that we know, it's kind of tough to make the shifts when you're raised in a certain way. So it is very mindset driven, I know.
Yeah, absolutely.
So let's talk about proper nutrition and why it's important for business owners and also for their employees.
Yeah. I think it's often ignored. Nutrition's often ignored as an area to look at. And whether it is, anywhere, if you think about it, anywhere in life, right? It's often ignored. And nutrition should be step one. We hear the phrase nutrition is medicine, and I wholeheartedly believe it. I know you wholeheartedly believe it. I know a lot of people believe it, but not everybody practices it all the time.
Yeah.
But not only is nutrition medicine, nutrition is fuel. And I think that is often missed. And as whether you're a business owner or an employee, you have to be properly fueled throughout your day in order to be productive. And we know in business, it all comes down to productivity, right? We want to make sure we're being productive. We want to make sure we're making the most of our time, and we want to make sure we're making good choices for our company. And that all happens with nutrition. Like if that's not in place and we are not eating well, we're not going to perform as well as we want to. Even things like dehydration, even a very small fraction. If you are 2% dehydrated, you will start to notice it. You can start to see it in your productivity and in the brain fog and all of those, issues where you don't feel like you can concentrate as well. And that's just the water side of things. That's not even the nutrients that are going into your body. So I think it's really important for business owners and employees. I think it's really important that we all start to focus a little bit more in on nutrition and make sure we're maximizing that, and that employees are getting what they need as well to be able to do the job that they want to do and do it well.
Yeah. Do you feel like when I was younger, which I was an athlete in college, I thought a lot about fueling my workout. That was, around a lot of my day. And my husband is a heavy weightlifter and he thinks a lot about that too. It's macro driven in a lot of ways, but I don't know if it's because I'm in my 40s and aging and, looking at dementia and Alzheimer's and things like that, and, older parents and things, or if it's because of the societal narrative. But I've noticed, so I'm either being targeted by my marketing, which is great, I'm into it, or society is shifting to where we do care about fueling for functionality, but it also seems like we're starting to hear more about cognitive decline and how we can fuel our brains. And I have just been fascinated by that side of nutrition because honestly, until the last couple of years, it was just not crossing my mind. Do you feel like you're seeing that shift?
I do. Yes, I do. And I hope people are seeing that shift as well. I hope they're thinking about it. Just like with your heart health, just like with any of your other organs, the brain is important. And we need to make sure that we are putting the right nutrition in to help our brains fuel. A lot of cognitive decline, just like heart disease, starts young. I mean, we can start to positively impact those things and reduce the risk in our 30s and in our 40s. And we can start making those changes now while we're not necessarily seeing the outcome of what could be. And I think that's where it gets really difficult across the nation. Why people don't take it more seriously is because a lot of times we're so focused on the immediate results, right? Or the immediate results. How fast can we lose weight? How fast can we do this? Oh, shoot, I am pre-diabetic. How fast can I change that around? We're not really worried about it until there's something to worry about, but we should all be worried about it now. And we should well, I shouldn't say worried about it. We should all be thinking about it now. We should all be doing proactive things like making sure that we're eating more whole foods, making sure that we're getting our omega-3s in for brain health. All of those positive things are things that we should be adding in now and not waiting until it is a problem.
Yeah, I love seeing like creatine, for example. We've always got creatine in our house. That's something that my husband takes and my son will take when he's training. And I've always thought like creatine is for this certain time and it has to do with working out and weightlifting. And I saw research come out recently that was like creatine is excellent for brain health. And I was like, I love that. I love it when we get new information and new ways to utilize things that we already knew were good for our body. But I was not consistent with taking creatine. Like that always felt like when I was growing up, it was like the boy thing to do for some reason.
Right. Or the bodybuilder thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so I've started adding these creatine gummies to my diet and my son, because I'm like, it's for brain health too. Like I love that. And it's going to have other impacts as well, as far as like building muscle. But, to me, it's so fun. I can see how you could, consume your entire life with supplements and being so picky or whatever. But I think it's just such a fascinating area that you can go down the rabbit hole with.
Yes, you could.
Yeah. So what are some of the common nutritional mistakes that busy professionals make, and how would you recommend they avoid those?
So if I had to think of a few, because there can be several, right? I work with lots of busy professionals, but the top ones that I would say that I see would be number one, skipping meals. I think a lot of people don't eat breakfast in the morning, or not even that. Some people just aren't really hungry when they wake up, but a lot of people won't even eat until lunch or maybe even after lunch. So I see that happen a lot with busy professionals because they feel like, if they're parents, they get their kids out the door and then they get to work and then they dive right in. So they say, I have my coffee and that's all I need. I'm not hungry. And so they'll drink and on their coffee drip, I call it their coffee drip all morning. And then they won't even think about eating until lunch. So if we think about what that actually does to your body, you're not putting the fuel in, right? So just like we were talking about, an athlete would fuel themselves. You do need to fuel yourself in order to get the results that you want to get from work. So I think that that's the first mistake. The second mistake would probably be too much caffeine in coffee and not enough water. And we feel that instant burst of energy when we have caffeine. So whether that's coffee or, an Alani or the energy drinks that are out there, and not drinking enough water. Because I think in the moment, it feels like you're getting that boost of energy and it feels good. But that's not actually the sustainable energy that you're going to need for your entire day. So I would say that would be the second common mistake that I see a lot of busy professionals make. And then the third one would be not moving their bodies. So movement can look like lots of different things, right? Movement can be daily walks. Movement can be lifting weights. And I won't go too deep into that, but if you're not moving your body, if you're not getting up and taking walks, you're really missing out. That really can help with a slew of things. It can help with regulating your appetite. It can help reduce stress. And I think we can all agree at work, probably all of us feel some stress at one time or another, right? And so reducing stress, just walking away from your computer for a minute, to come back and then feel re-energized and ready to go can help really boost your energy levels as well. And so I think those would be my top 3 that I see busy professionals make most commonly. So I don't know if you're a listener listening in, count them, see if you've got one of those on there. Those would probably be probably the most common ones I see.
So if we've got somebody that's an office worker and they're at their computer, what's the step count in general, male, female? So I know this is just an average, but what's the step count that you're like, shoot for this daily?
I would say if you can hit 7,500, 8,000 steps a day, I think that's great. I think you hear 10,000 very commonly. 10,000 is pretty tough to do. Like, in my opinion, you're going to have to go on a couple walks a day in order to hit it, especially if you're tied to your desk all day. And I even know for myself, when I worked in the hospital setting, I would take the stairs. I was doing rounds. I was walking up and down patient floors all day long. Steps were never a problem for me. And when I started my own business and I'm behind a computer screen, I really have to be thoughtful on that and getting my steps in. Unless I'm going for a run that day, I will not hit 7,500 steps just on my own. I am going to have to get up and take walks to do that. But walking can be so powerful. It really can. It can help reduce blood pressure. It helps relieve stress levels. I mean, don't underestimate walking, everybody, because it really can make a difference with your health. And so, yeah, I think 7,500, 8,000, I think that's a great place to shoot for. If you're a way overachiever and you want to try to hit 10, even better. But I think you can get a lot done on 7,500 steps a day.
Yeah. And I would say, just to add to that, because I usually hit somewhere between 8,000 and 12,000 a day, but I've got a completely different level of an intentionality than what I used to. When I worked in an office job in a corporate setting, I would literally get home and be like, I've walked under 2,000 steps. So now I have to take a long walk. You know what I mean? It's going to take a lot of intention, which would be frustrating. Now, every time I get off a call or finish a project or like a deep email, I walk like out my office, out my front door, and then back in through my garage. It's not that far. I mean, it's not that far. I don't have a huge home out here, but if you do that 6 times a day, just through my work day, I've added, I don't know, somewhere between 1,500 and 2,000 steps just on accident. Cause then also I get out of my office and then I'm in my kitchen and then I'm puttering around, putting things away, and I end up going over and petting my dogs. And so I move more than just those 4 steps. It literally is just getting me out of my chair. But some of those habits to put in there, I think so many times we're just like, I can't. But you can't not.
Yes.
It's so sad.
Yes. Agreed. And that's a great way. I mean, that right there, it's a habit that you have started doing, and it's a great way to incorporate more steps. I mean, just getting up out of your chair throughout the day really does make a difference. So that's amazing.
Yeah, it does. And, I wish that I, could go back to my corporate self and tell myself like, okay, if you follow the principles of, let's say, Peter Drucker, who is the father of modern management, old school guy, he talked a lot about management by walking around. And I wish that I would take my principles that I do at my home office and would take those back into my 20 years of my corporate setting, because there are people I could have been connecting with, building relationships with, maybe answering quick one-off questions, and they wouldn't have been bottlenecked waiting for a meeting with me. Could have helped with overall morale, camaraderie, maybe could have seen any issues that were going on or obstacles that needed removed. And so while I think it's easy to say like, oh, you work from home and this is an easier practice, this is actually, it's not over. And it's not only beneficial to health, but adding it into a management practice, it's going to do a lot for your organization, whether you're a middle manager or a high level leader. That visibility will positively impact your culture and will make things work more efficiently. So there's multiple reasons why that matters.
Yeah, for sure.
And I wanted to mention on the caffeine thing too, and you might have seen this on my social media over the years, but I love when dietitians and nutritionists talk about caffeine, because I feel like in the US, it's just like a given. We never want to talk to anybody about that sacred little baby cow caffeine, because no one's going to give it up. Like only crazy people would give it up. Like, do you want a migraine? Do you want to be not productive? Like no one's sleep is perfect. So we just use that as a crutch. And years ago, I think May was 5 years ago. It was either 4 or 5 years ago. I was struggling and having panic attacks and was under a lot of corporate stress and pressure. And I started noticing things like I couldn't get a deep breath at my desk. And if anything would happen, I would find myself like just the shallow breathing and couldn't get deep. And I was talking to my therapist about it those years ago, and he was like, it's time to put you on a prescription, which I'm not anti drugs. Like sometimes you need that kind of intervention.
Sure.
And I get that. I support that. But when he said it, I was like, what else? What else can I do? I'm sleeping. I'm doing my yoga. I'm, trying to be active. I'm trying to limit my alcohol, like just started talking through it. And he was like, well, there's one obvious thing that you could do. You could eliminate caffeine just for 30 days and see what the impact would be for you. And I was like,
Anything but that.
yeah, it's like your emotional support water bottle. You know what I mean? Like in the mornings, I just get my warm cuppa and I love it. And, all my favorite mugs and all my meetings are at coffee shops and all of that. And I tried it for 30 days. And I will admit, I had a headache for 4 days that was like a dull roar. And it was hard. And, at the end of the 30 days, when I had another session with him, he asked me how it was going. And I said, I will never drink caffeine again. And I'm not a big always or never person, but it had such a positive impact on my mental health that I didn't realize that if you're already a tightly wound person, or if you struggle with anxiety, or if you just have situational anxiety, when you add a stimulant, sounds very rational saying it now, but I just didn't get it. When you add a stimulant to it, it's going to exacerbate. Like I was sweating through my shirts, my heart rate was high. And of course, like I'm wound tight, I'm adding the stimulant. And he said, you could drink a cup of coffee, Kerri. You just can't be drinking your espresso. You can't be drinking 3 cups of coffee, And I said, I'm too afraid and I like the way I feel. So I'm just not going back. And so now I just drink decaf and it's been great for me. So I would just challenge people, like from a nutrition perspective, from a stress and anxiety perspective, like think about your caffeine intake, because most of us just have no clue what it's really doing.
Yeah, that's incredible. And I'm one of those people too. I get a little anxious. I'll have 1 cup of coffee in the morning and I cannot do another cup of coffee after that 1 cup of coffee in the morning. And I realized that actually once I started my business, because I would have my cup in the morning and then if I would meet someone for coffee and then I would get a coffee, I was jittering. I was like, why am I shaking? And it wasn't even espresso. I would get a tall coffee and that's it, And I just realized I can't do that. It's too much. It makes me feel really anxious when I do that. And so, yeah, I think even if you're someone and you're like, oh my gosh, Kerri, how did you do that? I could never give up my caffeine. Just thinking about how much you're having, And so for me, and I'll have an unsweet tea, or I might have a Diet Coke here and there or something like that every now and then. But I'm sure not having multiple cups of coffee. And because multiple cups of coffee is, 1 cup of coffee is 2 cans of Diet Coke. 1 Alani is, 4 cans of soda, And so if you're thinking about, even for your kids, I know we're not talking about kids in particular, but I know that's been a hot topic. I've got a teen now. So that's been a hot topic with kids. And so really paying attention to what they're drinking too, or you yourself, if you're just grabbing some of those energy drinks, some of them have, 200 milligrams of caffeine, which is really the daily limit. So something to think about.
Yeah, it is. We are really specific with our son's caffeine intake. And I know we probably sound unrealistic, but it's just 0 is our kind of limit for him. He's 12. And he says at school, sometimes he gets into it with friends because they'll be drinking something and he'll be like, hey, you're going to have a heart attack. Like he's listened to my like overbearing language, but he'll be like, you don't even know, like you shouldn't be drinking that type of caffeine. And if you go to basketball practice after school, that's hard on you.
Yeah.
So I think that education is important. And do I want him to have something every once in a while? Like, yeah, it's cute when we go to Starbucks and he can have something, but I'm like, you can have a vanilla bean frappuccino. Now let's talk about the sugar. That's a whole separate issue if we're, getting away from that too. But there's alternatives. Like I don't miss coffee because I have all these decaf options and I've got my nootropic creamers and I've got my mud water. Like now I've made it into this like treat for myself. It's not something I took away. Now it's something that's really good for me. And so I think it's just that back to that mindset thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
So how do you think that a business owner or a team leader could promote better nutrition within their workplace? Like what about those of us also that are working in a remote environment? So both sides of that coin.
Yeah, I think it gets trickier when you have a business with employees that work remotely. You have to be a little bit more creative. So I'm going to talk about both ways. I feel if you're in the office and you have the ability to be able to bring in or provide some healthy lunches or snacks. And I'm not even saying every single day. I know there are companies out there that do that, and that's incredible if you're able to. But even if you don't have that kind of budget, or depending on the number of employees you have, I think even just once a month, once a week, every other week, okay, we're going to have a healthy afternoon snack, the first Monday of every month, and bring in things like a parfait bar, or bring in just some options, maybe some turkey sticks and some good protein options, some hard-boiled eggs, some fruit, and bring those options in. And I think for a lot of people, healthy eating isn't necessarily because they don't want to eat the quote healthier foods, right? It's usually lack of having it and not wanting to take the time to go get it. But a lot of times, if it's presented, a lot of people will eat those things. So I think just that exposure and having it available, and that also tells your employees, wow, they care about me. Like, they care about me. If they are wanting me to eat well, they genuinely care about me. That's so nice. So I think if you have that opportunity to bring in food, or maybe it's a healthy lunch once a month where, you can bring in a healthy, salad bar or taco bar or something like that. And I mean, bonus points if you can say, hey, here are your good protein sources. Here are some good high fiber choices, or have someone there to talk about it. I think that's fantastic. But also, if you have remote employees, I think that you can do things for them too. Look into where they're located. Could you send a gift card once a month? Hey, go check out this restaurant. I've heard they have great options. Or just mail them some good healthy snacks. There's just so much. And I think as an employee, I think back to when I worked for a corporation, it means the world when you feel like someone cares about you and they want to send you something to make you better, And so I think thinking through those things, and how do you want your employees to feel? And there's lots of options for that. So that would be another thing I would suggest. You can certainly do things like lunch and learns. I think, it depends. They have to be super engaging, right? Like, you want to make sure your clients are engaged and they're not just showing up because they have to. But I think even things like if you're in person, can you have walking meetings? Even if you're remote, can you have walking meetings? Hey, everybody, hop on Zoom. We're all going to go for a walk, and just seeing each other out walking on the screen, or, things like that. I just think it builds camaraderie. It really promotes health in the workplace. And then the other thing I'll say to that too is, oftentimes I'm the type of dietitian who really wants to focus on adding things in, not taking things away. And so in this instance, though, I'm going to say, I think a lot of companies too can do meetings and certain things in ways that maybe aren't promoting the best health. So I think also thinking about that, I know a lot of businesses and companies, and maybe within their smaller teams within the company, will go for happy hours after work, and they'll go do these things. And maybe in their mind, they think this is a great time to bond. We're all going to go have cocktails after work. Well, that's maybe not the most nutritionally friendly thing or the most health conscious thing to do, right? So maybe thinking about, even, could we go do a group yoga? Could we do that in place of a happy hour? Could we go to a smoothie bar and let them tell us what all options they have and what add-ins they have and why it could be beneficial? So I think just challenging you to think about, what could you be doing? What are you currently doing? And could you be doing meetings differently? Or could you be enhancing their health by providing more nutritious options? Even if that means it might cost you a little bit more, it could save you a lot in, employee productivity too, and happiness, right?
Yes. Overall health,
Yeah.
productivity, all of those things. So speaking of time, what are some quick and easy meal prep ideas for the busy business professional?
Yes. So I feel like, and if you're listening, you probably are already thinking about what type of person you are when it comes to meal prep. So as a dietitian, I'm always teaching that you have to do what works best for you. So thinking about what is going to work best, what are going to give you the best outcomes. So for some people, that means meal prepping everything. They will meal prep their breakfast, their lunches, sometimes their dinners, especially if they don't have, a family that they're cooking for. Maybe they're just meal prepping. So if that feels good to you and that works, that's a great option. For me, I don't like to do that. I don't like to eat the same exact thing for lunch every day. And so that's not me, but I am more what I call a hybrid food prepper. So even you can either purchase things already pre-washed and cut. For me, I like to get my produce, get my eggs. I'll hard boil some eggs. I'll wash my produce. put them in clear containers so that you can see them and they don't go to die in the produce drawer in the fridge to never be seen again until they're full of mold, right? So prepping some of those things as soon as you get home from the grocery store or as soon as you do your grocery order, prep those things, have them ready to go so that it's a really easy yes when you open up your fridge and you see those carrots in there. It's really easy for you to grab those because we all know if they're not washed, they will not get eaten, right? So I think thinking through some options like that might take you a little bit of time on the front end, but ultimately once your week gets started and it's busy and chaotic and you feel stressed, it's a whole lot easier to make better health choices. And I think nowadays too, even if you don't want to do any of that, let's say you are like, I could, but I don't want to. We all have choices, right? But there are some options that you can get that are prepped. There's plenty of meal delivery services and things like that. I would just encourage you to look at the ingredients, look at their, the company's, their values and check the labels and things like that too. But there are some of those available that could still allow you to eat better than, going through a drive-through as well. So I would say those are kind of the three options to help save you a little bit of time in the long run and just help you be a little bit more prepared, because I think the preparedness is everything when it comes to being successful with your nutrition.
Yeah, I agree. And you're right. There's so many options to meet people where they're at. I know you're located in the Columbia, Missouri area, and I'd recommend, I know Hannah partners with somebody named Dakota, and it's Coda's Fit Kitchen, and they have incredible options. So you got to check out Hannah's Instagram page because she's got a code where she partners with Coda's Fit Kitchen if you're in that area. But picking up, I see that you talk about rotisserie chickens. Like, I love that. I love having a rotisserie chicken. A lot of times on Sundays, that's our like family day after we come home from church. And if we're grilling anything on Sunday, we always love to throw like an extra package of whatever, an extra package of chicken or whatever our meat option is for that day, because it's a game changer for us through the week to have that protein. And then we figure out if we want to throw it on a salad or put it in a burger, or if I want to add it into or put it on a sandwich or add it into a pot of soup I'm making that day. So we use it in a bunch of different ways so we don't get tired of it, because we like the change up too. And working from home, I can prioritize that a little bit differently. But
yeah,
yes,
absolutely.
People can prep in a million ways.
I can't believe I didn't even say that, honestly, because rotisserie chicken, prepping your meat up ahead of time, like those are the types of, I like to call it like halfway prep, which is where I like to live. But having those options available, it saves you so much time. And I would even argue, if you have your meat prepped, you will save time rather than the time it takes you to go to a drive-through, wait on your food, maybe have the right order, maybe you're missing something from your order, right? So thinking about that and just taking time ahead of time. And one thing I like to do with that is to make a list and plan out, write it out. And so if you know that you need to have some chicken prepped or you have to have a rotisserie chicken, make a note to yourself on your calendar, whether you keep it in your phone, a paper planner, both like me. Make a note to yourself so that you know what you need ahead of time so that you don't get home and then you're like, oh, shoot, I don't have my chicken prepped. I better just order some pizza, right? So the having the meat prepped is amazing. And you can even, Sam's Club, there's all kinds of places that have meat that's already prepped for you that you can just grab, and it's super easy and really can help you eat much, much better than if you were to just go grab food from somewhere.
Yeah. And it doesn't have to be like, I would love to have antibiotic free range, grass fed, like all of this. And I try to, but I also have to say I have bags of frozen chicken, breaded chicken, like all kinds of stuff that I keep in my freezer, because I'm not going to let it be an excuse if I don't have everything perfect or anything prepped or meat that we've smoked. Like, I have no problem, no shame in my game running out to my freezer and grabbing my frozen bread. It's not what I want to have every single time, but in a pinch, I'm using that and I'm throwing it in my air fryer and I'm still having a good protein sampling in my meal. And, it's not every single day, but I have no problem doing that whatsoever.
Absolutely. And it's still a better option. I think that's the thing. Some people are so all or nothing, oh, well, if it's not this, if it's not all this free and, free range and all this, and, oh, it's a chicken strip. It's like, actually, some of those lightly breaded chicken strips are really good. I eat those a lot. I make them for my family a lot. You can throw them on a salad. You can throw them in a wrap. You can get really
Yes.
creative with some of those. So yeah.
Toss them with a little butter and a little Frank's hot sauce, and now you've got
Oh
buffalo
yeah.
chicken strips. Yes, I love that. And I just want to let it be easy. I think
Yes.
sometimes, we just decide that it's too hard for us and that our life is too busy. And it's like, no, let it be easy. Like meet yourself where you're at. Don't judge and feel
Yep.
like you've got to do all these special things.
Totally.
So let's talk about some strategies for managing stress through nutrition. Like we were just talking about how we don't want to make it harder. What are some of those strategies for managing stress that nutrition play a part in?
So I think about this from a couple different ways. I think sometimes it can feel like a lot of work to prep or to plan, or you don't want to take the time to do it. But in the long run, it really can prevent a lot of stress as your week goes on. So I think just taking time, for me, that's on Sundays, taking time to plan out what you're going to have. And remember, it does not have to be a strict rule, right? If something happens, something comes up in your day, or your chicken wasn't prepped in time, you can always change it up if you need to, but making a plan and being prepared, it does wonders for your stress because I don't know. I'm sure, Kerri, you can relate to this too. But on the days maybe where I didn't get to plan, I feel far more stress having to try to figure out what we're going to eat after an already stressful day? And so that would be one thing. I think the second thing is that daily movement we talked about, doing practices that are going to help relieve stress. For sure. So walking or yoga, or even just sitting in your car when you get home for 5 minutes and just breathing for a second before you walk in the house. That's I think, one of the best stress reducers. And then the third thing would be just thinking about the food that you are eating, because the foods that we eat actually can help reduce stress. So some of those omega-3s that I was mentioning before for brain health actually can help with mood and mood stabilization. And so incorporating things like fish when you can, or, walnuts or chia seeds, those are great sources of omega-3s too. Even whole foods, leafy greens, berries, all of those foods with color have some really good, powerful things in it, antioxidants in it that can help combat stress and just help you feel better overall. And regulating how you're eating, even not skipping meals, can help stabilize your blood sugar. Eating balanced meals helps stabilize blood sugar. And if you're sitting there thinking, I don't have diabetes, why does that matter? It matters because it can impact what you choose to eat later. It can impact how you feel. You can kind of feel like you're on this roller coaster. I think we can all remember a time where maybe we have felt our blood sugar's gotten a little low. We feel hangry and it just overtakes you, right? So making sure that we're eating really good and balanced can help prevent that, can help prevent cravings, or we just want to dominate all the sweets and then we feel like crap after, and we don't want to go to that stage either. So I really think if you're thinking about how to manage stress, don't underestimate the power of your nutrition, because it really can do wonders. And it's one of those things that we don't know until usually we don't realize it until we eat well. And then we have a day where we don't eat well. And then we can look back and say, oh my gosh, it's because I wasn't eating well.
Yes.
But it really, truly does make a huge impact on stress levels too.
Yeah, I see that also when I've mostly given up drinking alcohol, and it's not a hard and fast rule for me. I just realized like it just doesn't work well with my body. It makes me feel like crap. But yesterday we went to the wineries in Herman for Oktoberfest, and it was so fun. And I drank a little wine. And this morning when I got up, I was like, okay, Kerri, get prepared and eat your protein first, because I know how I am. Luckily, I don't live near any fast food, or let's be honest, Chinese restaurants, but like having alcohol the day before also makes me weird. Like it makes
Yes.
me crave these different, like I need grease, I need carbs, I need like all this stuff the next day. And I'm like, I'm starting out the day with 2 eggs that I fried in butter because I know how I'm going to be. And if I just do one right thing, it sets me up for the whole rest of the day. Like I've been fine the whole rest of
Yeah.
the day. But if I wouldn't have done that, then probably at about 11 o'clock, I would have been hitting the chips. Like
Yep.
no doubt.
You would
Melting
look a
some cheese
lot
on it.
different on this podcast had you not eaten your 2 eggs this morning.
Yes. So burnout has been a huge topic, and I've had a few podcasts just specifically focused on burnout, but we've really talked about workloads and workflows and hiring and things like that. So I love bringing it into this segment. So what role can nutrition play in preventing burnout amongst business owners, leaders, and employees?
Yeah. So I think again, not underestimating that power of nutrition. Burnout, it can be a real thing. And I think burnout itself will lead you to want to make different food choices than you make. Whether that is I'm burnout and I'm stressed. I'm burnout and I'm stressed and so I don't want to eat, or I'm burnout and I'm stressed and I want to eat junk. But focusing in again, those foods that I was talking about for brain health that help to stabilize mood, that's really important for burnout as well. I think also coming back to that caffeine, I think that's another area to really hit on is the caffeine and the alcohol. So if you're turning to caffeine or maybe you're turning to alcohol at night because you feel like it helps you unwind and relax in the moment, it might, just like in the moment, a cup of coffee might help you feel productive and ready to dominate some of your work. But in the long run, it's not going to do that. It's going to wear off, and in the long run, those couple glasses of wine at night going to wear off and you're not going to sleep well. And you're going to want to eat weird things the next day that aren't going to help you feel any better and will only further exacerbate that burnout. And so I think it comes back to really some of the things that we've already talked about, but paying attention to what you choose. Like, where do you lean toward when you're feeling burned out? What kind of person are you? Because I think there are a few different options. There's those people that don't want to eat. I'm too stressed, I don't want to eat. Or there's those people that want to eat everything, or that are using caffeine or using alcohol and finding other things to do to help them, kind of make it through that burnout, when really, just putting the right things in your body and eating balanced and making sure you've got, good high fiber carbohydrates and a good lean protein and all of those colorful fruits and vegetables to put in great fiber and even thinking about that, putting the good fiber in those fruits and vegetables can impact your gut microbiome. I mean, that's a whole nother topic, but that can positively impact your stress levels as well and help fight inflammation, which can then in turn change how you respond to burnout and stress in your life too. So really, it's just getting ahead of the game. We can't prevent burnout. Sometimes we're going to experience it. We can't prevent stressful times at work, but we can control the things we're putting in our body. And that will help us to be able to manage some of those symptoms and some of those feelings as they come along.
That's good. So as a business owner or as a leader of people, what can we do to encourage those around us to adopt healthier eating habits?
I think starting the conversation first and foremost. In so many work environments, you just don't hear about it much. You might hear, hey, you need to hop on this lunch and learn, or there might be something that you have to do to get points or do something like that. But I want to challenge any employer to really dig deeper than that, dig deeper than just playing a video or dig deeper than just, a surface level thing. Check in with your employees and ask them, how are you doing? How can I encourage you? How can I, help you in your journey? Having some of those healthy snacks at work, going above and beyond and doing those extra things to let your employee know that you care. I think just starting that conversation, it takes a while for people to hear these things. You have to hear them a few times before you start to do them. But even things like taking the walking meeting. Hey, does everybody have their water? Have a challenge at work, like a fun little challenge. It doesn't need to be hard, but hey, this week, everybody, we're going to drink half our body weight in water. So if you weigh 150 ounces, we're going to drink 75 ounces today. Let's see if we can do it for 7 days. Things like that, small things like that, that can really help your employees to see how much better they're feeling and engage with them. Don't just give them something to do, but engage with them. I think that can be really helpful in fostering this better, healthy environment in your workplace. And that in turn is going to get you, again, more productive employees that want to be there, employees that are happy, who can handle their stress, manage their stress better. And it's just really a win all around.
Yeah. And I'm assuming that it's similar with nutrition as it is in other areas with leaders. Let's say a leader struggles with time management. And so they've got an employee who's missing deadlines, but that leader is like a little skittish about talking to the employee because the leader's like, I struggle with it too. Don't you think probably when it comes to nutrition, a lot of times leaders are like, I'm struggling with my weight, or I struggle to be consistent with my workouts. So who am I to say something to someone else? And I just love for someone to be vulnerable and say, like, I try to be really open with my team. Right now, I'm working with a tapping coach. I've done a ton of talk therapy over the years, but there's some stuff in my central nervous system that I've just struggle to unwind and untangle. And so I have this tapping coach. I meet with her weekly, and I'm very open with my team
Yeah.
about what I'm learning, because I want them to understand, like, if they're struggling with anything emotionally or mentally, I am not the place to hide it. They don't have to do that. I am a safe environment, but I'm certainly not saying I'm doing tapping because I am an amazing, perfect human being. Like, I'm being open. And I would love for leaders to say, like, I'm struggling with working out too. So will you all help hold me accountable, or let's do this together? So many times as leaders, we think we have to have it figured out, but like, we don't. And our employees see that we don't. So we might as well
Yes.
just be honest and do it as a team together.
Yes, I was just messaging with a client this morning, and she was sending me logs of what she was eating, and so I was giving her feedback and saying, "Hey, let's bump up the fiber. Let's try to add just one extra serving of fruits or vegetables." And I said, "Listen, I wasn't great last week either. That's what I'm focusing on this week. So, we'll do it together, and
Yeah.
let's make this the focus of the week." And so I think when employees can feel that, or anyone who, as you're working together, that view you as like the authority, or, making them realize, hey, we're all in this together. Like, let's all do it together. But then as the employer, then do those things with your employees, get them engaged, be right there with them. I think it really speaks volumes.
I think so too. So, what advice would you give to business owners who want to start improving their own nutrition, or leaders? They want to start improving their own nutrition, but they feel overwhelmed. They're not sure where to start. What would you encourage them with?
Yeah, it can feel really overwhelming. There's so much out there. There's a lot of misinformation out there. And just sometimes you can feel like you don't know what to do because you've heard from so and so that they went keto and they had results. And then you heard from so and so that they're doing a weight loss drug and they had results. And you've heard, it's a lot out there. And so, what I would recommend doing, this can be for anyone. You want to start with one thing and get really good at it. And so one thing that I think everyone could be doing better is eating more whole foods. Make that a good focus. Start there. You could even, if you're someone who does not do well with protein, even try to incorporate a serving of protein every time you eat. Like, take 1 week and say, this week I am going to focus in on my water, or I'm going to focus in on my, vegetables. I like adding something before I like taking something away. So focusing on what you can add, because typically when you add something, it makes you realize that you don't crave these other things. And so when you start adding more vegetables, you realize, wow, I'm really full. And I'm starting to lose the weight that I wanted to lose. That's crazy. And it's because vegetables are very low calorie. If you take a plate, you could fill the entire plate up with the amount of calories in less than a teaspoon of peanut butter, So just thinking about things like that and how it can positively affect you. So if maybe you're great with veggies, maybe you need to focus on water. And so just think about one thing that you can change, because I think that you'll start to notice how much better you feel. And then when you get feeling really good about that and you're really confident in that, then you can add another thing and do this habit stacking. There are things that you can take out if you want to, but I would encourage you to start first by adding something. And then you can think about the things that maybe I have too much alcohol. Maybe I could pull back there. That could be a great place to focus on next after you've already implemented adding some of these good things in.
That has honestly been one of my favorite things about following you on social media. Is one of the messages, and I don't even know, I'm assuming this is intentional, but it could just be ingrained in you. One of the things that I feel like I most consistently hear from you is, you're probably not eating enough.
Yes.
And I love that message, because I feel like almost every other message is restrictive. And hard. So
Yes.
it's like, oh, I love how encouraging that is, how it makes me feel just when I'm consuming the information. It doesn't feel condemning. It doesn't feel restrictive. It's like, probably not eating enough. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've heard that intermittent fasting is good. And then over the years, I'm like, that's not really great for my hormones, or, as a female, or around your cycle, there's all this.
Yeah.
You hear the one thing and then you hear the other side. And it's like, if you're not a nutritionist, what the hell? Like, how in the world are you supposed to figure out what you're doing? And so I love that message of abundance from you, that it's like, you're probably not eating enough, starting there. And then it's like educating. You're probably not eating enough.
Yes. Well, I just want to encourage you, if you're listening in, no matter where you're at, because I think everybody could be all across the spectrum with their nutrition. I think there's always an area that we can all focus on, including myself, a dietitian who teaches this. There's always an area we can all focus in on. So I would love to encourage you to pick one area that you want to work on. Maybe that's your brain health. Maybe that's adding in some of those good omega-3s like we talked about, or maybe that's just adding more whole foods in. Or maybe that's just getting up and going for a daily walk. So think about an area that you want to focus on. That's a really great place to start to work on improving your overall health, whether you have a disease state or whether you don't and you want to keep it that way, right? So I'm so glad that you all were here to listen in. And Kerri, thank you again for having me. I'll share my social media info with you guys. So if you are listening, I am on Instagram at Wholesome Nutrition Co. I have my podcast called Wholesome Nutrition with Hannah, where I try to share all kinds of good nutrition tidbits that's great for everybody. So you can find me on Apple, Spotify, pretty much all the places where you listen to a podcast. I would also love to share a code with you all. So I have a meal planning subscription app that I use where I plan out 7 family-friendly, healthy dinners each week. But the cool thing is you can swap meals out. So if I plan something that you don't love, you can go through, and I have over 200 recipes and counting that you can pick from. So you can go through, you can search things like if you have a lot of quinoa on hand, you can search quinoa and find quinoa recipes and things like that too. So I will give you guys a code for $5 off your first month. You can use the code Kerri5 for that as well. But I would love to hear from you all over on social media, or if you want to check out my website, it's wholesomenutritionco.com. I've got lots of blog posts and just some freebies and some goodies on there for you too.
I know that this can seem like chaos, but the work is worth the effort, I promise you. So don't waste this chaos. Embrace it. Until next time.